and to ask my colleague Janine to go ahead and click the record button. So thank you for being here. This webinar is all about sort of data enhancements and a demonstration of some new functionality to the webinar.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead and yeah, thank you there. So today's agenda, as I mentioned, the heart of the webinar today is about the data enhancements and some functionality. Adam Garcia is also going to give a demonstration of those using a couple of South Bay examples, one in Coyote Valley and one in San Jose. But for those of you who are perhaps new to the Greenprint, I'm going to go ahead and give a brief overview just to give you some context why this tool was built, where it's been, where it's headed. But before any of that, I'm going to do two things. First, just remind everybody to mute their mics. Thank you. And then also in the chat box, please chat your name, your organization, and whether you're a new or existing user. And so you can just type new or existing. And then an icebreaker, where would you teleport to this weekend if teleportation technology existed, which I believe, is just right around the corner. So we'd love to know where you could go if you could. That might be fun. And I also want to mention here at the outset that there's going to be a couple of break points where we'll answer your questions and have a bit of a discussion. Oh, I see that Liz O'Donoghue from the Nature Conservancy is with us as well, who's been instrumental in steering the Greenprint these many years. So good morning, Liz. So we'll break at about 10:20 to answer any of the questions that you have, and then we'll also do another round of questions at 10:50. But what I'd encourage you to do is go ahead and just chat away any questions that come up along the way. Janine Knapp will be monitoring the chat window, and we'll get those questions teed up when we break to answer those. So feel free to just chat your questions as we go. All right, next slide. So the Greenprint, the Bay Area Greenprint, the Greenprint as a sort of a tool, it's a GIS, like a very geographic heavy tool that is meant to
Tom, I think you got muted. Let me see if I can.
There we go. How long was I muted? Not that long?
Just a few seconds. Just
oh, interesting. Okay, cool. So the Greenprint tool is all about empowering its users to foster growth that balances nature, agriculture, and the needs of a growing region by revealing and kind of removing barriers to data that reveals the multiple benefits of natural and agricultural lands. Next slide. The Greenprint as an idea for the Bay Area is about 7 years old. So this has really been kind of brewing for a long time. As a tool, it's about 3 years old, coming up on 4. And it's gone through a bit of a journey. It was launched and publicly available, free to use in 2017, and some major enhancements in 2018. And the 2019 marked an important part of the Greenprint journey in that kind of a formal partnership was established with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission and the Association of Area Governments, this a joint agency. And in 2020, this year, the Bay Area Greenprint inspired several other Greenprints around in other regions, most notably in Southern California, where the Southern California area governments, their metropolitan planning organization, basically ordered up a Bay Area Greenprint for Southern California, which is excellent in terms of better growth, more informed decision making, and that's really the goal of the Greenprint here in the Bay Area, and then to inspire other regions. Next slide. In its next slide, please. Thanks, Adam. In its short lifespan so far, the Bay Area Greenprint has been instrumental in several key planning efforts, and also a couple of kind of land conservation advocacy groups, or for several land conservation and advocacy groups. And these kind of case studies can be found on our website. But this is really the test of a tool like this. Is it actually being adopted, and is it being used for its intended purposes? And we can say with confidence that it truly is. The other way that the Greenprint is being used is that it's been, as I mentioned before, kind of formally adopted by the Metropolitan Transportation Commission as a way of helping the Priority Conservation Areas program, really helping MTC help the different municipalities and jurisdictions in the Bay Area feed back, strategic recommendations for that program to MTC. So it's a really nice use of the Greenprint tool there. Next slide. The objectives of the Greenprint really are to remove the barriers of access and of interpretation of natural resource data, so that they can be incorporated and considered early on in planning processes. The data historically have been very disparate, difficult to interpret, and we're really trying to kind of wrap our arms around that, provide a one-stop shop for natural resource data and assessments for primarily planners, and then provide sort of a common way of interpreting the data and analyzing the data for not just planning decision-making, but also to identify things like funding opportunities. And then also to, just in more general terms, raise awareness about nature and its benefits. I think most of us, or many of us, understand that, but there's still so much more work to be done to educate our boards, our publics, and our investors, so on and so forth. Next slide. A tool like this is best served if you focus on a specific audience. And although there are 6 audience bubbles here on this slide, I want to point out that really the audience is a planning realm. It's a land use and infrastructure planning realm, and we're really targeting all the actors that that sort of operate in that realm. So, community planners, transportation planners, consultants that help those planners, infrastructure agencies, conservation agencies and organizations, developers even, and advocates. Next slide. And this certainly was not done in a bubble. We relied heavily on the advice of really a kind of a wide range of actors in the region, folks from conservation organizations to water districts, transportation authorities, rangeland experts, and of course, consulting firms who often do the bulk of the work for agencies. So it's really important. So welcome to all of our consulting planners out there. Next group, next slide. Yeah, the next group is also critical to a successful tool. And this group is our Science and Methods Committee, who help us to accurately interpret the information that's in the Greenprint. So we want to thank our experts on the Science and Methods Committee. Next slide. One of the neatest innovations of the Greenprint, I think, is the framework. There's so much information out there. There's so many ways to sort of view the environment. So what is the lens through which the Greenprint looks at it? The Greenprint looks at all of kind of environmental values through the lens of nature's values and benefits. And so we have 10 values and benefits, and those are water yield, food production, compensatory mitigation, carbon storage, air quality, habitat connectivity, water quality, outdoor recreation, prioritized habitat, and water hazard risk reduction. There's a lot more, as you all know. There's probably an infinite number of values of natural land and benefits. These are the 10 that, as we were interviewing planners and folks who would be using the Greenprint in the early stages, these are the values that came through as what would be most important in a planning frame. And then there's 4 cross-cutting issues that are kind of woven throughout these different values and benefits. And those are policies, climate change, urban greening, and resilience. So these 4 pieces really are, as I mentioned, just sort of woven through the values and benefits. Next slide. And for example, climate change. The way that we weave climate change through these different values and benefits is through the idea of how climate change may pose a risk, or what opportunities exist to protect resources given climate change. And another way to put that is, how can we increase resilience, or the ability for a system, whether that's a natural system or a human system, to sort of bounce back from the impacts of climate change, like increased fires, for instance, or sea level rise. Next slide. And another key innovation I want to sort of highlight here at the outset is, as many of you know, policies exist out there, and that any type of tool like this needs to be aware of and informed by existing policies. And through some yeoman's work at the Greenbelt Alliance, Adam's work when he was at the Greenbelt Alliance to produce the at-risk map, that work resulted in an aggregation of, and a sort of a synthesis of policies related to food production, water quality, biodiversity, recreation, and open space across the Bay Area, the 9-county Bay Area region. And that's no small deal. One county's water quality policies may be different than another's. And so he and his team, and through the Greenbelt Alliance, sort of crosswalked these different policies, and we have them now in the Greenprint as a flag. You can actually just go ahead and look at these policies, learn about them, and they're part of the reporting tool. Next slide. Adam's going to go into this a little further, but we just want to mention that there's head on over to Greenprint, bayareagreenprint.org to see our new website design. A couple of neat features that were added are right here. Oh, actually, you can't see my mouse, but these 3 panels here in the middle, the flood and floods in Coyote Valley, rising tides in San Rafael, and farms and trails in Livermore. These are case studies that if you land on the Greenprint's website, we didn't have these before. And you might have clicked on one of the 3 buttons on top, the Analyze and Report, View Dashboard, and Get Data, and that would kind of steward you into the website. However, what we were finding is that some folks were skipping over what we think is the most important aspect of the Greenprint website, and that is the reporting technology. And so these 3 examples here, once you click those, it will walk anybody through the process of starting with an area of interest and learning how the reporting works and what the reporting says. Again, this is all about kind of this key functionality of the Greenprint, where you can upload or draw an area of interest and get customized reports for it against these different nature's values and benefits, which you see here on the right. Those are our 10 values and benefits and 4 cross-cutting elements that I mentioned before. And this is also new to the website. Before we just had the icons, and now we actually have a description for each one of those. And this is just some educational enhancements that we felt are needed in terms of just raising the awareness, vocabulary, and understanding of all of these different ways of looking at nature. So we're excited about these new designs, and go ahead and take a look at them when you get a chance and let us know what you think. Next slide. Okay, there's several ways to access the Greenprint. Just want to mention again, bayareagreenprint.org is where you get it all. The first is a way of just really at a high level and just see how the different values and benefits kind of stack up county by county. So for here, we have an example of, percent of land protected. There's this interactive dashboard that you can get on the Greenprint's website, and you can click on these different features and values like percent of land protected, and you get a readout really of how the different counties stack up. And this is tailored toward aids to elected officials and anybody who's looking for kind of a high level cheat sheet as to how the various counties compare with respect to, say, groundwater recharge or carbon sequestration, those kinds of things. Next. The other way is to just hunt and peck. There's a dynamic web map that you can turn layers off and on, zoom in and out, pan around. You can download the data that you see. Next slide, or next animation there. And then this is one that I'm particularly excited about. This is basically a conservation assessment. So you've got your different values and benefits all kind of embedded in a technology here where you can slide your preferences up and down and get a sense as these colors sort of kind of shade in and shade out. You can get a sense where there are hot spots of these different values and benefits. So if you're curious where water resources and biodiversity priorities overlap, then you can slide those up, and you can slide other things like carbon and recreation down, and you can see where the hotspots exist. So a really cool thing I highly encourage you to play with. Next animation. As I mentioned, the other really important piece to the Greenprint is the multi-benefit reporting. You supply the area, we supply the interpreted data. And next animation. And then super important that you guys as practitioners aren't just going to sort of take this data and run with it. You need to know where it came from, how it was all calculated. So we have detailed methods and glossaries. So we really encourage you to take a look at that to increase your confidence in the Greenprint. Next slide. Okay, so cool. So here's our first stopping point. Just want to encourage you again to chat your questions. That was an overview. If you don't have many questions, totally understandable. But if you do, just here before we get into the meat of the webinar, then we'd love to hear those. Okay. Well, cool. I'm just looking at the chat right now. I'm seeing Spain, Italy, Yellowstone. I just went to Yellowstone last year. Highly recommend it to Damon. Nice. Blue Ridge Mountains, Costa Rica. That's what I'm talking about. A beach in Mexico with a hammock. You got it, Amy. Let's see here. Scotland, Brisbane, Singapore, wonderful. Okay, well, hey, these are so fantastic. Thank you guys so much for being here and for chatting in these great ideas. Oh, Andy's, good stuff. I'm not seeing any, I am seeing a question here. How often is the data updated? That's a great question. Data are not necessarily on a specific update schedule. It's really, we have a team, a core kind of Greenprint team that has its feelers out in terms of when certain data sets do get updated We kind of put them in a hopper and work them in over time. There are some data like the farmland mapping and monitoring program, for instance, that we use that does get updated on every 2 years. So those get automatically put into the hopper. But if we don't have a regularly scheduled kind of refresh of the data, just these data come from a lot of different sources. And so we just do our best to keep our ear to the ground. And then Petronia, you ask, what exactly is the downloadable fishnet? That's a great question. Fishnet is a bit of a term of art here. We should be a little more descriptive there. What we did, a fishnet is basically just it's a grid, but it's not a grid like as in images. It's a grid of polygons, and there's probably around 100 data sets that are in the Greenprint. And in order to speed up the reporting time, because this is all dynamic on the web, we take this fishnet and we sort of cookie cutter all the data sets. So we transfer all the data into this square grid, which we call the fishnet. And that way, it just helps with computing. And it also helps with downloading. So you can download the fishnet, and all the information that's in the Greenprint is actually now attributes in a table of these different grids. And that's what the fishnet is. I think this is going to be kind of a new thing, or a thing that catches on with data delivery. Sometimes you're going to want the original data, and we kind of just point you to those data to download yourself. And that way you can make sure you have the most accurate geometry. And I have a question here. Is it a sustainable fishnet? Yes, definitely. It's dolphin safe fishnet. You can rest assured. Okay, with that, I'm going to introduce Carrie Schloss, who's going to do a deeper dive into some of the data, the additional data, some enhancements to our functionality. So, Carrie, take it away.
Carrie and Tom, before we move to that, there was also one more question from Stephen about who to contact if we have questions about using the Greenprint. And you can contact info@bayareagreenprint.org. That email address does go directly to the core team members' inboxes, myself included. So, and I can disseminate it to the right team member to help you answer that question. So I just want to make sure we didn't skip over that. It's a good one.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Janine, and thanks, David. Carrie.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Janine. I'm going to take us on a quick tour of what is new in the Greenprint. And that question about what and when data is updated in the Greenprint is relevant here. The first data set that we're going to talk about is an update to the Conservation Lands Network, which lives in our prioritized habitats, nature's value and benefit of the Greenprint. So we have added a bunch of new data sets that have recently come out, and also updated some key data sets for the Greenprint. And we've done this across several of the different nature's values and benefits themes. And I'll walk you through what those are and where you can find them. Next slide. Yeah, so the first one is the Conservation Lands Network. Just recently released. If you were at the webinar, I think 2 weeks ago, the Conservation Lands Network had a big refresh. The Conservation Lands Network 2.0 just came out, and we replaced the Conservation Lands Network data with this new network data, and also with the new key riparian corridors from that same effort. And we've added a land cover layer, which is based on the CLN's vegetation layer, but rolled up to the life form class. So those data sets are now in the Greenprint. We've also added a new nature's value and benefit. So the new one now is air quality, and how we represent this is through air pollution sequestration by natural vegetation. So this data layer shows how tree canopy, shrubs, and grassland capture and sequester both PM 2.5 and nitrous dioxide, and sequester and help filter and clean our air. The map here is an example of where how PM 2.5 is sequestered by these natural vegetation types. Another new data set is in our urban greening section, which is priority areas for street tree planting. And this is a data set that pulls together lots of different information, like where are the heat islands, where is there air pollution, where are there opportunities for tree planting, where there currently isn't canopy cover or there currently isn't natural green spaces, and where is the population, so we can best provide shade and air pollution filtration for the people that are there. And so we have some hotspot maps of where this is, and in the reporting you'll find that in the urban greening section. The next one is groundwater dependent ecosystems. Groundwater dependent ecosystems contain species and ecological communities that rely on groundwater for some or all of their life history needs. And they also can provide refugia for species during times of drought by having access to groundwater and staying green, as other habitats and ecosystems might be dependent more on surface water or streams. And so these are areas that can provide important refugia during these drought times. And also groundwater dependent ecosystems are part of the SGMA, the Groundwater Management Act. And they're required to be considered and identified. And so the Bay Area Greenprint is now supplying this data. It can be found under our water theme, and also as a reporting for providing resilience to species of concern in the biodiversity theme. And the last is a whole new module, and this is the mitigation wizard. And this lives within the Bay Area Greenprint, and we're going to host a webinar in 2 weeks as a part of this series to provide a deep dive into how to use the mitigation wizard and what it can do. But this is a new tool that lives within the Bay Area Greenprint that can identify potential project impacts to any project that you have an idea of where it is, or a shapefile for, or just knowing what species are going to be impacted by a potential project. And then you can explore areas for high value conservation opportunities for mitigation. So it's a planning tool. And then those sites that are identified through the planning tool can then be run directly through the Greenprint to evaluate the multiple benefits of those opportunities in the Greenprint. So it leverages all the existing data in the Greenprint, but adds a species-specific look at potential project impacts and sites for potential mitigation. And now I'm going to pass it over to Adam Garcia to take you on a tour of the Greenprint.
All right, good morning, everybody. So as Tom went over, we've got a nice new flashy homepage with a lot of great rich information. There's examples of how the Greenprint is used with some pre-baked reports that are very easy, just to give you a sense of some of the power behind the tool in trying to highlight these different issue areas. Up at the top, you'll also notice this is our menu bar. So we're going to be looking at the dashboard, the heart of the tool, analyze and report. Carrie just mentioned the mitigation wizard. Get data is where you'll find the fishnet. The methods and glossary are great resources for just understanding a lot of the technical and scientific data that goes into the tool. And then we'll also take a look at resources and news around the Greenprint. So yeah, I think the whole team is very excited, not just for the flashy icons, but just for the educational aspect of having all of these values listed here for us to be able to easily access. It is an amazing educational tool for all ages. So for instance, habitat connectivity says connected habitats are more resilient, allowing free movement of plants and animals as conditions change. The Greenprint highlights critical linkages and regional connectivity data to highlight areas important to wildlife movement. So a nice, just simple explanation that hopefully is accessible to a variety of backgrounds. So the dashboard is a way just to get that snapshot of the different themes and then the sub issues. Here we're looking at biodiversity and focusing in on regional connectivity. And that shows us a map as well as then a breakdown of the different counties and just a brief explanation of what that particular layer is, as well as the source of that information. We have an updated resources and news page. So you're here today at the Bay Area Greenprint webinar. Here's the mitigation wizard coming up on November 18th with RSVP. And we'll also be trying to show past webinars that are recorded through some of our partner organizations and making sure that any explanations that are out there of how to use these tools are more accessible to our conservation efforts. So in the Analyze and Report section, this is where you come into first, where you start off with an assessment on the screen. And this is showing essentially all the 9, 10 nature's values and benefits all in balance. So those darker areas are where there's more overlap. And of course, you can slide those back and forth to prioritize and highlight where there's certain overlap of issue areas if you're looking for funding opportunities, interested in exploring those issue areas out for a hike, whatever or for conservation efforts, obviously, as well. And we're really excited to have a clear all button now, too. So if you want to just start from fresh, you can click that, and all of these sliders will then go to the lowest setting, and you can go ahead and start up and focus in on just those values that you want to highlight. So right across next to it is the Map Layers button, and so this gives us a breakdown of all of the map layers that are within the reporting tool, as well as a few additional ones. And here we see the open space policies all tracked and listed on here. So understanding where exactly those values are, you can look at and click those on and off to see exactly where the overlap is. And there's also the little information button tool there as well, which gives you a chance to go to the glossary. And of course, we've added a clear all button as well. So you can click on a bunch and then start from scratch again. So it makes it easier to navigate the many data layers. So for reporting, you have essentially 3 options at the top, and we're going to explore all 3 today in the presentation. What you're able to do is to draw an area, either a circle, a line, or draw your own shape. If you have a shape file already, you can upload that shape file, or you can choose an area. The options are cities, counties, watersheds, and historical baylands. So in this case, we're going to take a look at San Jose. And so what you'll see is a zoom into San Jose and just with the city outline. That'll give you a chance to be able to then drive what layers you want to have show up in the tool or through the assessment. And at the very bottom, there's several helpful buttons there. If you want to save your PDF or save your report as a PDF, as an Excel sheet, or that specific shape that you've maybe drawn as a JSON, or you can share it as a link, or also do a comparison option where you can compare 2 areas and see what the different values are between those if you're making a decision around prioritizing 2 different areas for conservation, or perhaps where 2 different development sites to try to identify where the least impact might occur. So here's a look within the reporting section. So once we've generated that report, you scroll down, and here you can see the different elements of the report. So at the top here, we see how will water supply be impacted by climate change. So it gives both an opportunity where there might be areas that would allow, for instance, a higher recharge rate, or where there's areas that might be more prone to drought. So showing both threats and opportunities. In the table form, we're able to see then the values within San Jose. So here's water quality, and we're looking at in terms of acres of these different values in our units. The shape is the city of San Jose, so that was our shape that we selected. And here we can see that nearly half of San Jose is under, or is on top of a hydrogeologically vulnerable area. That's 10% of the hydrogeologically vulnerable areas in the whole Bay Area. And if you want to look at that on the map, then you can click on that little radio button there, and that'll pop on. For other information, we have did you know statements, so ways to interpret potentially more complex information, or just ways to break up the data a little bit to understand how the values are being expressed within your area of interest. Within San Jose, there are several policies related particularly to water quality. So we have those listed. And if you highlight either those particular values, or for instance, any of these underlined statements, you'll get the glossary term to pop up. So here we have a quick little explanation of the groundwater dependent ecosystems. So this is a very complex tool with a lot of different ways to be able to access the data for a variety of different uses. And as we've highlighted, there are different audiences that we've heard from and have helped use this tool. So from infrastructure agencies, planners and consultants, developers, as well as conservation agencies and related organizations. And so we've highlighted a few of the different uses of the tool, but wanted to just take a quick stop here and see for those users who have been using the tool since 2017, you know, what have you used the tool for? How have you found it helpful? And if you're a new user, and we'll explore some options, some case studies still, but we'd love to know how you think you might be able to use the Greenprint as well. So we'll just take a quick pause, and if you want to chat any potential uses, feel free to enter them into the chat box. It doesn't seem like anyone's entered in any uses, but we can.
Adam, I think we have one.
Move.
Steve.
Oh, do you? Okay, sorry.
Would like to.
Oh,
they'd
great.
like to find out. Yeah. Do you see that?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So yes. So thank you, Steve. To find out the tree canopy coverage in your city and set goals for tree planting. So perfect. We have both of those there. You could, depending on what your city is, you can enter it into the reporting area, and under carbon, you could see what the urban tree canopy coverage is, and then under urban greening, you can see where those very high and high priority areas are for tree planting. So we would love to hear how that goes for you as well, Steve. Okay, great. So I think all, let's see, we've got a few more. So suggestion to add option to the transparency of the layers. We could overlay one layer over another. I think that's a really great one. One we talked about definitely in our team meetings before, and I know that as we're searching for the next innovations and the funding to make that happen, we will definitely revisit that one. And from Doug, how do we get the groundwater dependent ecosystems mapping and data? So one of the helpful tools, so since we only offer the FishNet to download, in our glossary, when you click on that glossary item, you can actually then go to the source link for that original data. So you can be sure that you're getting the latest source data. So in this case, I'll double check once we're off the call, but making sure that that glossary term then has the shapefile source for the groundwater dependent ecosystem, so you can incorporate that into your plans. And from Stephen, he says, our county needs to establish an oak woodland protection ordinance. Does the data include vegetation types for counties? So the vegetation type is rolled up to a higher level. And Tom, maybe you can jump in as well too, but one of the purposes of the Greenprint is to be able to highlight a lot of the higher level data that's out there. And we also recognize that there's more specific data that, as Tom has put in, we would go to CLN 2.0 for that more vegetation specific information for specific oak woodlands. Okay, so in the interest of time, I think I'll jump ahead and let's see how seamlessly I can do this. Let's see. So we're going to now look at San Jose for the Coyote Valley and the downtown Google campus area. So as you can see from the aerial images, two very different areas, one rural and natural lands, the other one is kind of the heart of the biggest city in the Bay Area. So let's take a quick look at how those can be represented within the Greenprint. Okay, so here's our homepage. So now we're going to go to the Analyze and Report section, and looking in. Let's look at Coyote Valley first. So we'll go to our select a file. In this case, we have the Coyote Valley shapefile right there. It has to be zipped up, and so then we can say get report, submit, and momentarily we have now a view of the Coyote Valley. And again, it starts with the kind of assessment layer. And what we're trying to now look at is what can the tool tell us that we might not already know, or if we're exploring it for the first time, how can we find that information? So scrolling down below, you can see now the reporting section. Here are the different tabs for the reports. So you can jump to biodiversity and habitat, agriculture. In this case, let's take a look at water. So one of the interesting things that we're finding, a more recent layer is floodwater retention. So what we'd like to know a little bit more of what exactly that looks like and what it means. Well, knowing that it's 991,000 cubic meters might be helpful for those hydrologists, but for other folks, there's a did you know interpretation that says the floodwater retained from a single storm event is the equivalent of 396 Olympic-sized swimming pools. So it gives us a context of exactly how big that, how much water this Coyote Valley is protecting. And so clicking on that radio button turns on our peak flow retention button. We've got about the dark blue areas show exactly where those contribute the most towards helping percolate rainwater down into the groundwater, which is critically important for reducing downstream flooding impacts to San Jose. Another one to look at is the groundwater dependent ecosystems as well. So zooming in, we can take a look that there's wetlands as well as different vegetation along the riparian corridor that is especially critical, and as Carrie mentioned, more resilient for during climate change as well. Let's see, so we're gonna take a quick look now and we can say, let's start over and take a look at downtown San Jose. So we can switch to different views here and go into photo. Then zooming into to San Jose and the downtown area, we can see the tall buildings there. Here's Diridon. And so the draw-on area, so we know that there's a Google campus plan, but for our considerations, I think we'd want to be able to know what the impacts are to the surrounding area as well. So we have a couple different options, a more minute 1/8 mile buffer, though the half-mile buffer seems to capture kind of the station area and some of the more immediate surrounding areas. So we can say get reports, type in a quick name and say submit. And so that zooms into our area. It still has on what we had before. So the groundwater dependent ecosystems exist there as well. And in the overview section, there's some helpful issue areas for communities. So understanding who the people are and what the issues might be. So in this case, what we're finding is that within this area, 98% of the area within our circle is experiencing or at risk of gentrification and displacement. So as a planner, that's very helpful to be prepared and understanding what the sensitivities and issues might be of working with those surrounding communities and ensuring that that community identity is as well preserved and enhanced even as this new development comes underway. So urban greening would be your go-to place when you're looking at kind of these core urban areas. And so within this section, here's our priority landscapes for tree planting, very high and high. So again, clicking on this radio button, we can then start to see exactly where the areas are that are most important given the combination of different factors for high priority tree planting based off pollution or where the population lives, where there might be a lack of trees. So that's a helpful layer to show. The other one that I just wanted to mention as well that we talked about was the sequestration for PM 2.5. And so here we can see that the landscape is doing work for us as it is. So making sure that we try to preserve those areas, enhance the vegetation to continue its service of trying to minimize air pollution within that urban core. So I think I'll stop there and then pass it on to Tom for any questions.
Great, thank you, Adam. That's wonderful. So as you guys can see, there's loads and loads of information that the Greenprint is basically vacuuming up from other sources and trying to make them available and contextualized as best we can. So let's open it up to questions. Do you have questions just about the Greenprint in general, about specific data sets, any of the functionality that you see? So let's hear it. So let's hear. I see a question. What's the general resolution of the data? The raster resolution in particular, that varies. And I want to just mention that, actually, Adam, do you mind answering this? You and Carrie have done really a lot of work to figure out scale, resolution, Do you have a brief answer for Petronile? Adam, you might need to unmute yourself or.
Thank you.
Okay.
So about a year and a half ago, we went through a big effort to try to answer that question, which is particularly helpful for reporting. So in this case, you can see where it's available. We've mentioned that the above ground live carbon storage has a minimum acre threshold for accurate reporting of 100 acres. And so this is coming directly from the authors, the data authors themselves. And so as you're drawing an area within the tool, if your area is smaller than 100 acres, a message would pop up that said, unfortunately, the area is too small for the resolution of this data set, and we don't report on it. So where the data is measurable and in tune with your area of reporting, then the data will be reported on. So in this case, the above live carbon would have to be over 100 acres of a reporting area.
Great. Thanks, Adam. Yeah, just another plug for the glossary page. We really tried to do our best to get you the as many answers to those types of questions as possible. But info@bayareagreenprint.org is another great way as you all are diving in to get those kinds of questions answered. But thanks for that. Other questions? What are the ranges of resolution? Is 100 acres the smallest that can be considered? No, it's not. Adam, would you mind jumping in again?
Yeah, so there are, for a lot of the policies, for instance, those have been mapped out exactly from the jurisdiction. So it might be, say, 100 feet from a riparian corridor. In that case, the resolution is as small as you can make it. So there is a range within there, within the data sets that are able to usually be reported on within the tool. So here, for instance, the CNDDB rare and protected species has a minimum acreage threshold of 20 acres.
So it varies is the answer, and the smallest that can be considered, it really depends on the data set that you're interested in. So great question. Thanks, Liz. Let's see here. Other questions? These can be comments as well. Yeah. Doug, you write, does Greenprint link to Eco Atlas or the Bay Area Aquatic Resources Inventory? It does. We borrow from SFEI's great work in several instances. It looks like Adam's teeing up a couple of examples here under our water category. The quantity and quality of California wetlands. So the wetlands inventory is coming from Eco Atlas. I know that, the streams come from Bari. Adam and Carrie, any other ideas that come to mind in terms of SFEI, Eco Atlas, the aquatic inventory?
Just actually a suggestion that if there are other kind of map-based tools that you find are really helpful that are in the Bay Area, even if they're, say, statewide or national, but have Bay Area representation, we're very interested in just kind of having this resources page as a helpful resource for all of those questions to help us jump into more detail. I know for urban greening, Green Plan IT is also from SFEI as well. So trying to give a more detailed analysis of those low impact development projects. The Resilience Atlas as well as here.
That's right. And Tony Hale from SFEI was one of our first, and it still is an existing Science and Methods Committee members. And so we thank Tony for that. And we see, not sure if this is Tony, but somebody from SFEI just posted, as we update our Baylands map as part of an upcoming project, we would happily, yeah, this is Tony, we would happily coordinate to integrate the latest information into the Greenprint. Thank you, thank you. That's wonderful. Great, other questions? All right. Well, cool. Well, we just have a couple of minutes left. Pause just for one more moment in case somebody is typing something. Petronila, thank you for making this tool available. I look forward to working with it for my next project. All the best. Thank you so much. And please feel free to reach out. Info at bayareagreenprint.org is go ahead and just send us what you're working on. If the Greenprint helped you achieve any of your organization's objectives, we'd love to hear that. Okay.
And there's a nice little feedback button here at the bottom of each website or web page that if you click on that, that takes you to a Google form. So it's a nice handy way. That also, as you know, goes to info at bayareagreenprint.org.
Thanks, Adam. And I just see that Stephen Getz posted that Cal Invasive Plant Council, Cal IPSI, is preparing a Bay Area inventory of invasive plants. It's wonderful to know. Let's see here. If we can flash back over to the slide deck, we'll just wrap up with a couple of announcements. That's great. So just a reminder that a couple of weeks ago, as Carrie mentioned, we had a kind of the first webinar in this trio of webinars, and that was on the Conservation Lands Network 2.0. And that's been recorded. It's about an hour long, and it gives you a sense for what the Conservation Lands Network is, which, in terms of the Greenprint kind of incorporates the biodiversity priorities from the Conservation Lands Network, but it is a biodiversity conservation vision for the Bay Area. So really encourage you to check out that webinar. And then in a couple of 3 weeks, we're going to have the Mitigation Wizard introductory webinar. Highly recommended. A ton of work went into the webinar, the Mitigation Wizard. And so bookmark that and sign up for it, which you can do at bayareagreenprint.org. Next slide. I just want to make a couple of, feel free to take this quick poll that we just pushed out. Are you already a Bay Area Greenprint user? This just helps us, collect some basic data. So are you already a Bay Area Greenprint user, and how useful did you find this webinar? Thank you for filling that out. Next slide. Just want to make sure that we recognize our great partners, the Green Belt Alliance, Nature Conservancy Together Bay Area, Green Info Network, and M Group. And there's our contact information. And finally, we want to acknowledge funding. Without the Bechtel Foundation, the Natural Capital Project, and the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, the Greenprint would not be a thing. So we thank these groups from the bottom of our hearts, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for joining us this morning. Be well, stay safe, and thank you again. Let's see here. Liz, Janine, and Carrie. Okay, great. Thanks, Liz. I saw Samuel's question about the Southern California Greenprint.